Hey guys, this is it. This is it. This is it. Okay? We have absolutely nobody watching us at the moment. But anyways, you know what?
They took the solo argument literally.
Yes.
No, I think they're gonna watch it tomorrow or yesterday or something like that because of me or man. Unbelievable. But yeah, we are live, and guys, thanks for doing this. I know it's time. You know, time is precious, and precious is time. What can I tell you? And already the sparks were flying backstage here, so it's gonna get a little ugly. I'm here to moderate. Kilroy, Robert, you take it easy. All right. So we got Stigler. Stigler is the against the solo thingy, and Robert will be pro. So, guys, there's a set of rules. You guys read it, right?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, you know what? Here we go. If people want to participate on the peanut gallery, you're more than welcome. And remember, sometimes I won't be able to get to you, right? So we're gonna have the question here, and the question, actually, the topic is: should we play war games solo? So, representing consolo, not to be confused with Han, is Alan Dickerson, who you know as Stigler from his YouTube channel.
Hello.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess my...
Now, in the rules, it says you can't talk now, so don't talk.
Whoops.
So, representing Pro Solo, a CSR winner, Robert Carroll, as you know, as KilRoyWasHere from his YouTube channel. So, gentlemen, okay, this is it. Again, should we play war games solo is the topic. Stigler, you have an approximate 3 minutes for the opening statement. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. First off, I want to start with a disclaimer and say that my opinion of solo play does not extend to games that were primarily designed as solo games. So I won't take a shot at some of the great games that have been designed to be solo games. That's how they were meant to be played. With that said, I believe that wargaming and other forms of gaming are social events, and they are meant to be played with 2 players or more players. And the first point that I will bring up to maybe prove my argument or to add weight to my argument is that the 3 of us are here having a debate, but we're not having the debate solo. We're talking about war games, and we're having a discussion about a pastime that we all share, but we're doing it cooperatively in this case, and also competitively with me versus Kilroy. So again, that just points up that games were meant to be played with 2 people, and unless you're in dire straits where you absolutely can't find an opponent, then that should be your goal, to play opposed. If you absolutely can't find anybody to play and you're still interested in playing war games, okay, then yeah, go ahead and play solo. But these days, with Vassal available and all kinds of other technology available so that you can find opponents all over the world and not just in your town, the opportunities, I think, are almost always there to be able to play opposed. And that is why I say you should not solo.
You know what, Stigler? That was very well said. And I agree with Dave Tomko. Very well said. I don't know how you're going to get out of this, Kilroy, but you've got 3 minutes. As of now, sir,
I'm sweating already. So Khan Solo did shoot first. No Star Wars fans?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Pew,
right.
pew.
So I want to start with what really kind of prompted this whole thing, and that was Stigler did a rant. It was called his Solitaire Rant on why solitaire play is detrimental to the hobby or it's destroying the hobby. So I want to start with what we agree on, you know, where we are in agreement. You know, most games are designed to be played opposed. Playing opposed is a social experience that should be encouraged, and that we are engaged in a wonderful hobby that allows us to play with history. Now, where do we diverge? Well, we diverge in that solo wargaming is harmful to the wargaming hobby. It's not. Solo wargaming is an integral part of the hobby. It always has been. It is it's supported by several valid reasons that are based on player preference, and it's actually good for the hobby. First, solo is a large part of our wargaming hobby. I'm not opposed to playing opposed. In fact, when I can, I love to do that. That's how I started out. But you know, Stigler on his rant talked about solo play being a fad or a trend. It's not a fad or a trend. It's been with us since the beginning. And I'm just not talking about the solo specific games like Ambush and B-17. I believe that Tactics 2 was played solo once or twice or many times. Okay. Playing solo or playing a multiplayer game solo, or multiplayer war game solo, has been with us since the beginning. And I would dare say that we probably play games solo more than we play them opposed. I know that's heresy, but there was a recent poll on Constant World, because I posted it. Now I know it probably doesn't have statistical relevance because it didn't have that many responses, but it was interesting to show some of the results. Only 8% of people play war games opposed more than 50% of the time. 82% primarily play war games more than 60% of the time. 38% exclusively play war games solo, and only 2% exclusively play war games opposed. Solo play is here to stay. Second, there's a lot of valid reasons why we play games solo. There's our schedule, convenience of schedule. We can play where we want to play, when we want to play it. We don't have to worry about non-competitive nature, you know, not liking or preferring competitive play, or arguments, or being corrected all the time on the rules or what have you. And, you know, some people are not people, right?
I'm sorry, Robert. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm going to have to cut you off because Stigler actually said his piece in an allotted time, and you're just going off.
I'll reserve my time for later.
So I'll have to stop you there. And here we go. So, okay. So personally, thank you very much, man. Personally, Stigler, that was very strong. Very strong, Stigler. If we were counting points right now, I can't tell you I'd give you my point because I'm neutral. But whatever. So, okay. Here's the first question. So Webster defines game as a physical or mental competition conducted according to rules with the participants in direct opposition to each other. Robert, so why are we having this debate?
Well, so every type of game has to have one or more players or it's not a game. Is that what we're saying? I don't believe that's the case.
That's what Webster says.
I believe that so all solo games aren't games. So even the ones that Stigler doesn't want to address that are solo specific, they're not games. Video games are not games, right? Okay. Dan Verson, because you play them solo. I mean, so they're all not games. I just don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. This isn't a Schrodinger's cat situation where it's both a game and not a game until it's played opposed. A game is a game. And whether you add in, have a built-in AI like in a solo game, or you add your own AI in, whether you're playing both sides or use STUKAJOE's cards or what have you, it is still a game. In Stigler in his rant on the video actually suggested that even that a solo game, that playing a game solo isn't even a play. And again, what counts as a play? So it has to be opposed. Well, that's the case. Well, it has to be played by the rules exactly correctly. Okay, so if it's not correct, well, then that doesn't count. It's got to be played to its completion, because if it's not completed, well, then that doesn't count as a play. I don't buy any of that. Okay, a game is a game. All right. To paraphrase Shakespeare, a game by any other name is still a game, and a play is still a play. So this is how I choose to answer that question. A game or a play of a game is what I say it is, right? Because I'm playing it. It's Stigler. It's what he says it is. And most importantly, it's what whoever opens up a box, puts out the counters, and plays it, it's what they say it is.
Thank you, Kilroy. That was he name dropped Shakespeare, Stigler. So you have a 1-minute rebuttal for this, my friend.
All right. Yeah, that was a good one. Name dropping Shakespeare, very good.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of agree that a game can encompass solo play, but also not quite. For instance, if you decide you want to play basketball by yourself and shoot free throws or practice your dribbling or layups or anything like that, I would contend that you're not really playing basketball, but rather you're practicing basketball, trying to improve your skills. The same thing with a solo game that was not designed to be played solo, but rather competitively. Yeah, you can play, and you can play to learn the rules or to brush up on the rules or to investigate a strategy you might play when you play opposed, but I wouldn't say that that is necessarily a play. You are playing the game, yes, but I wouldn't call it an actual contest at that point. So there's some distinctions and there's some subtleties there, but there's my view.
Well,
If
thanks.
we're talking about a game, we're talking about an opposed match between two players or some teams.
Actually, that was well said, and it's funny. I'm bouncing back and forth here, but we have someone from the comment directed to you, Stigler, and it's here we go. Next week, Stigler will be lecturing the Texas Cattlemen Association on the benefits of vegetarianism. I don't think we have a fan there.
No, we don't. And Dave Tomko also says, so Stigler says solo gaming is just practice, and I would say yes. I would say yes. And case in point, over the last week, I've been doing a stream series to explore the Central Front series. And I'm playing that solo, and I remember that Kilroy made a pointed comment about how I was playing that solo and devoting a lot of time to it. But again, if you do bother to watch any of those, you'll see that there are some things that are probably less than optimal about my play because of the fact that I am playing it solo. There are some hidden units that I'm not really able to use. There are some mistakes that I might make that maybe somebody else would say, hey, Alan, you can't do that, or no, the rule is this, if I were playing with someone else.
Thank you, Stigler.
Can I have a moment to respond?
No, hold on a second. I want to, Jeremy Fisher here says B17, Queen Disguise, and Patton's best discussion over. Jeremy, we're not talking about solo-specific games here.
Actually, Dan, I want to respond to that. Yeah, we are. I mean, Stigler didn't want to call that out, but your question was playing a game solo is not a game. And so, yes, I bring those in. Solitaire games or games that are designed to be played solitaire are still games. How do you distinguish between that and then playing a multiplayer game solitaire? And the fact that Stigler used the word play, notice I was playing solo. I was playing.
The specific Stig.
I rest on that question.
All right.
Question.
Thank you. And we're going to go on now. And this is really interesting, man, because if I were on the fence, I'd be on the fence. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, that made sense to me, okay?
Dan, you are a fence.
Thank you.
I
So,
take
okay,
offense.
here's the second question, okay? And this is going to be, Stigler will have the first word, okay? So with
Again?
with COVID and the substantial influx of solo-specific and solo-friendly war game over the last few years, isn't solo here to stay and an important aspect of the hobby? Stigler.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that solitaire is here to stay and is an important part of the hobby, as Kilroy said. I will certainly cede that point. I guess if I had any misgiving about that, is that it may be that behind the scenes and in the developers circle and the publishers circle, I wonder if the trend towards solo games and solitaire play is affecting the design of just games, period, and whether designers might be being pressured to make a game more solo friendly or even solo altogether, even before they arrive on the market, just because it might move some more boxes or some things. And as a result, the shoehorning of solitaire modules, things of that nature, or maybe the changing of some rules to make something more solo friendly, whether that's actually having a effect on game design as a whole. And that I kind of worry about, given the popularity and the widespread nature of solitaire specific games, and also the movement towards solitaire modules for a game that has its own design set.
Well, man, that's a great point. Hey, that's a great point, because marketing is everything, and money, whatever it is. And but if I can interject, obviously I'm interjecting. GMT has a specific department for solo, so you can be designing a game and then throw it to the solo guys, and they'll figure something out. I think that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
You know,
that's how GMT does it, and other publishers kind of look at that. I mean, to your point, Stigler, I mean, I think that's a concern that, are games that are traditionally designed to be multiplayer, are they being, co-opted? Are they being unnecessarily, manhandled into something that is not what you want to come out with? However, I don't know of any instances of that. I don't know if you know of any instance of that. So I don't know if that's more of a fear without substance, or if it's going to happen. Some places like GMT, they handle it separately. A lot of the games that I've seen on that, if they're not designed solo, solo bot or rules are added later, and sometimes there's a supplement or update kit that comes out with that, or they're handled in a separate section. And to that point, a lot of times they're kind of an add-on or afterthought. And in that case, they're probably not going to affect what you want to see, and that is a rule set that models history on a two-player basis. Just don't read that section. Don't look at the solo section. Just ignore it if it's not if it's not infecting or diluting or tainting the overall rules.
It's funny that you say that, because all I know is of, and I'm assuming again it's GMT that has that department with Jason Carr, Kevin Kunn. They're the solo guys, right? But I don't know if any what.
Well, Compass Games, now this might go more to Stigler's point. I think Compass Games, watching their town halls, they actively look at every game that comes in to see if it does have a solo component. Is it solo friendly? They look for that. They look at that. But again, I don't know if that changes the design of it. It might factor into the decision. Do they want to publish it or not? But I don't know if they actually go back and say, "Oh, go redo all the rules based on that." I don't know if the fear is justified there.
It's funny though, but I tend to go on Stigler's side where there's a decision to be made there, and just that will affect that, in my opinion, will affect the 2-player game, whatever. But John Butterfield, he's the big solo guy, right? And now he's doing stuff 1 player, 2 players, and vice versa. So
yeah, the Enemy's Action series is both. It was designed to be solo, and you can do solo each side, and there's also a 2-player element to it as well.
We got
in that case, the 2-player element is the afterthought, I think, because those games I think were primarily designed to be solo.
See, what he's saying there is yeah, it would be great to make it attractive to everybody, but does it affect gameplay of the head-to-head? If that was the original intent of the designer, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, gentlemen, not to go on because I tend to go on. This again will be directed to Stigler. Stigler, this is the 3rd question. So, what about people who enjoy the history but not the competitive nature of opposed war games?
Okay. Well, again, I would probably say that one of the really good uses for a good, well-designed and well-researched war game is that you can use it as a study to help you understand a battle or a campaign or a topic better. I know that I do that a lot. I read a lot of books on battles that I'm interested in. And a lot of times when I'm reading through even very, very detailed ones, they might have a map here or there that kind of, shows a point in time, but then their map might not have the terrain detail that I can easily get by opening a box of a battle, of a game on the same battle. So I often use games to augment my reading of a book and help me maybe understand, now I can kind of understand why, this division couldn't get there because look at this huge swamp and this forest in the way and there are no roads, whereas the map in the book might not show me that. Now, all that being said, if I'm using a game in that matter to kind of maybe even throw some counters on there and kind of look at, a starting position that is described in the book, I would not call that playing the game. I would say that's a secondary use for the game. That's great, a lot of fun and very rewarding. But I wouldn't call it playing the game the same as if I were to say, "Hey, Kilroy, let's get together and let's play Panzergruppe Guderian, and you take the Russians, I'll take the Germans, and we sit down and play."
Wow, that's good. I like that.
I'll go back to the first part of what you said. I agree 100%. I mean, that's the primary reason why I play and emphasize the word play, because a play is a play is a play. Why I play war games. I tend to play probably solo more than not because of my schedule, because I can always make time for myself, and I don't have to worry about other people. And I really want to explore the history. I'm not into the competitive side of it. It's not that, I shy away from it, but it's something that I want to learn the history. I want to play the game. I want to see how the game models history. That's something I'm interested in. And putting the counters down, reading the rules, getting the counters on the board, moving them around, rolling some dice. That's how I learn a game. That's how I play a game. And I consider that a play. And I don't think that someone else can tell me that that's not a play. And I don't necessarily need the competitive nature of that. And I think there's a lot of people that, and I don't mind playing opposed, and I can be very competitive. In fact, I can probably be over competitive, and I think that's a fear too. Some people probably shouldn't play games competitively, right? We've all probably ran into those people, but some people just don't like that. Some people don't like that nature. They want to absorb it, play, figure out history on them by themselves, push the counters around at their own pace, at their own time, not be corrected on rules or anything like that, and just figure it out. And so I think there's some merit in that, and I think that serves a very valuable purpose in solo gaming.
Would anybody like to take Dave Tomko's question?
Is simulation a game then? Well, that's kind of a big can of worms, because for one thing, if you look at any war game, almost anybody who looks at it objectively will tell you that there has never been a war game that effectively, quote unquote, simulates war in all of its horribleness and terribleness. It can look at certain aspects, but I mean it can't really get you there. If you play squad leader, it's not the same as if you were out there in the bush in Vietnam. It would be a joke and would be insulting to the men who actually did go if you were to make that assertion. So I don't think that's even a question. War games are games that are militarily based or conflict based.
And I would answer it a little bit differently. I agree generally with what you said, Stigler, but I say it depends. A simulation can be a game. It really depends. Are you really just trying to simulate something? Is it really just an exercise in recreating the history at play, and just has a few game aspects to it, but it's basically on a rail? Well, then if it's too steeped in the simulation, go read a book. The game's really not gonna be playable, or it's not gonna be very fun. In order for it to be a game, there has to be some play aspect to it. There has to be some fun aspect to it. And in our world, some of that is the what ifs. I mean, if the Battle of Gettysburg is always going to play out the same way, then why are you playing it? I mean, go read a book. You want to see some of the differences. You want to try to solve the puzzle. You want to see if Ewell can take the high ground on the first day. You're trying to model it, and you also want to see how that specific game, models history, because they all are different. Not all games are created equal. So, yeah, a simulation can be a game, but it depends on how much gameplay that it adds to it, and does it have some sense of balance as well.
It's funny. I want to address these questions here, because you don't get to make decisions in a simulation. I really don't get exactly what he's saying, but he's saying why? Because it already happened.
Well, I'll chime in here. Okay. I think that old chestnut is probably associating the word simulation with recreation, and that is another kind of misnomer, where someone thinks that a war game, if it's going to be historically accurate, has to produce the same result the same way it happened in real life, which of course is a misnomer. It's the difference between a war game and people, say, meeting with the right clothes on a battlefield and kind of putting on a little display where Pickett's division charges on cue and is repulsed on cue, and everybody falls down and plays dead when they're supposed to. That's not a simulation. That's a recreation.
Recreation, yeah.
So people often conflate those two words, and no, I don't think so. As far as a simulation and a war game are concerned, again, I just say that any game can only abstract and create a flavor and a narrative that, you know, you might think might be close to what actually happened. But as far as, you know, you really being able to say I was there, it's like it's laughable.
Yeah.
Okay,
No
well, hold on,
certificate
Rob.
comes.
Rob, I got a question I'd like you to answer here, okay? Bang. Dave has got like these wicked questions, man. Go ahead, Rob. Is a solo game a simulation?
As much as the simulation is a game, I mean, if we got to figure out, I think we're using simulation for different reasons throughout this whole discussion. And I think Hethwell kind of raised a good point. I mean, I look at simulation as how well the game, I mean, we're all starting with the basis that it is a game, right? And we're all seeing how does that game model history? How does it portray the events that took place? How does it portray the units that were involved? How does it portray the use of the different arms that were involved, command structure? All those things go to simulation. All those things are mechanics. All those things are found in the rules and how and what mechanics are used to simulate or recreate or whatever you want to call it, that battle or that conflict or that campaign. And so that's how I look at simulation. It's a matter of, you know, usually the argument is between simulation and realism, right? Not between what is the simulation. But so yeah, solo games and solo play of a game is a simulation as much as the game is a simulation, right? I mean, it's really what you're trying to recreate in that game or in that game space.
But now there's the rub. I would say that if you're talking about that simulation space, then solo play is invalidated by the fact that the one player is playing both sides and knows what the other player knows, and vice versa. And that's why, you know, you hear people talk about playing, quote unquote, to the best of my ability, because I think that's an admission that you really can't, because you can't unknow what you know because you're sitting on both sides of the table.
Okay, guys, we're gonna do the last question here. This is incredibly interesting. I agree with both of you. It's awesome. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to play. I'm not gonna play anymore. Anyways, hold on. Okay, so this is directed to Robert KilRoyWasHere, the CSR winner for words. Here we go. Kilroy, can you really accurately play a non-solo specific, not talking about solo-only games, solo? So, what's with that splitting your mind in half, making independent decisions for both sides?
Well, actually, and that's what Stigler was just talking about, saying that you can't do that, or at least in his opinion, you can't do that. And you know, I think that's a good question and it's a good point, but I think that it misses the point, because I think you're looking at it from the standpoint of really from a competitive play analysis of two sides opposing. If you're looking at it from the standpoint of, I just want to see how history evolves, and I want to see how what kind of decisions each of the sides have, I think you could do that. You know, I'm not the best at playing both sides to the best of my ability. I admit, I play most of my games solo and a lot of two-player games solo. I'm not the best at that. I have a tendency, once I get in one side, I start favoring a side. But sometimes I also start favoring the other side, and guess what? I mean, maybe that balances out. But when I'm really looking at, when I'm playing a two-player game solo, is I'm trying to see what decisions are out there. What kind of how are the mechanics simulating or recreating the battle? And so in that respect, I kind of can separate myself to some extent and figure out what is the objectives of this force or this unit or this side, and then flip over and figure out what's going on with the other side. Plus, we have a lot of solo assist stuff coming out now. You know, Lock and Load Tactical has several solos for their Lock and Load Tactical, for Nations at War, World at War 85. STUKAJOE's coming out with a bunch of solo assist cards for his card-driven games. I mean, there's a lot of player aids out there now that recreate the AI. And that kind of comes back to the whole thing about solo specific games, that the AI is built in. Now you might say the AI is too dumb, or it's really not doing what's supposed to do, but there is still AI there, and they are working through what the other side is supposed to be doing on that. So yeah, I think you can. I think it's about how you approach it. If you are a dyed-in-the-wool, every game has got to be competitive, I need to beat the other side, and there's got to be a winner, and I got to use my tactics, and I got to put my skill and my tactics and my knowledge of the rules up against somebody else, then yeah, it's hard. I don't know if it's invalidated, but it's really hard. But if you're looking at the game to get an experience, to get a narrative, to figure out some of the history, to figure out what were some of the decision points, to understand the terrain, some of the stuff you were talking about earlier, then yeah, I think it can be done.
It's funny, Robert. The word play is very important here. Play.
We're all players.
I understand.
We're
I understand.
all players.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I'm just saying, and I'm not for or against what you just said. I'm just saying that word play. Are we making too much of it? Is it, play? Anyways, Stigler, go ahead, my friend.
Okay. Well, I was very happy to hear Kilroy admit that he is not the best at bisecting his brain when he plays solo. I know I have a devil of a time.
The other
doing
half
it,
of me disagrees
and
with that, though, by the way.
right, of course. And I'll sit down and I'll try to play a game solo, and the very first thing that I notice, just deep in my heart, I know that I have to pick a side and pick a gambit or a plan or something like that for one side or the other to kind of frame how I'm going to move forward. Because as soon as I take the other side, immediately I've got a really hard question. Okay, are they going to fall into the trap that I just tried to set playing on the other side? How do I decide to what degree they fall for it, or come up with a perfect way to nullify what I just did? Do I roll a die to determine, 1 through 3 they fall for the trap, 4 or 5 and 6 they initiate plan B, which will foil it, and I know that they will foil it. How do you determine that? I have a real hard time doing it, and for me, it kind of ruins the experience. Secondarily, as far as playing opposed, I don't think that playing opposed has to be categorized in that tournament competitive sense where you got to destroy the other guy and mop him up and all of that other kind of stuff. And in fact, when I do play opposed, I make sure to choose my opponents so that we can play what I call semi-cooperatively, where both of us are playing to win, but we're also playing to help the other guy enjoy the process, learn to play the game better, and to just to enjoy the entire process. So while I'm not going to tell him what my plan is, we're both going to be forgiving when the other guy makes a mistake. We're not going to say, "Oh, you took your hand off the piece, you can't move any further." We're not going to rules lawyer. We're not going to do all the we're not going to argue and quibble over stuff. If we find out that we can't agree, we'll roll a die on it and see how we're going to treat this game or something like that. But we, trade anecdotes, talk trash, all those things, so that we're having fun together while we're both learning how to perhaps play the game better and, become fans of the game while we're playing a competitive game.
And Dan, I want to follow up on that just a second, because
Sure.
I think that a couple things there. One, you said semi-cooperative. In the Eurogame world, cooperative play is also it can be solo play too. So thanks for supporting my position on that, Stigler. Secondly, what you said about learning the game, I think that's a fair point. And there's been several comments in here. Dave Tomko, Dale Bradley. They all talk about learning the game, and I think that's another valid purpose of a solo play, in that not only does that it doesn't have to be opposed, in that in the event that you do get to play opposed, or COVID lets up and we can play opposed, solo play is also a good way to learn the rules sometimes. Now, again, you don't have somebody correcting you and stuff like that, but it gives you a chance to kind of dive into the rules, figure it out. And I consider that a play, because you're working through the game. And it is. You don't put your hand up,
No,
but it is, because you're working clean. Dan, don't put your hands up. You're working through the rules, and and a lot of times, playing opposed, can be intimidating. If you don't have a good understanding of the rules, and let's face it, the games we play are relatively complex. They're 15, 20, 30-page long rule books. They have exceptions. They have, specific circumstances. They have, Chrome. And so you could be intimidating playing opposed against somebody and feeling that you don't know the rules. And not just that you feel that, oh, you're going to get beat or get owned or anything like that, but you feel like you're not going to give a good game. You want to have somewhat equal skill levels, so you have a decent game, right? So I think that, looking at a game from the standpoint of learning it, solo's excellent in that respect.
Well, guys, you know what? I'm going to have the final word. But you know what? This is a lot of fun, but I didn't think it was going to be this. For me, I don't know which side to go with, because Stigler has some great arguments. You got some great arguments, and the people in the chat have some awesome arguments. Obviously, it's not going to change my mind. I'm going to still play solo games, mostly solo games, not two-player games solo. I'm not choosing sides. I'm just saying. And this is really interesting, guys. Thanks so much for doing it. Stigler, thank you so much.
No closing arguments?
I'm trying to keep the show down to 45 minutes. Can you guys, you got 3 minutes. Can you guys do a 1.5 minute closing argument? Stigler.
Sure. Okay. I guess my mic drop moment would just be that, we're debating, and it's very, very close, and it's hard to make a decision. But in the end, the three of us and the people who are involved here all did this together. We didn't do it solo. End of story.
Oh, boom!
All right. Well, I want to say thank you, Alan, for taking time to do this. You've been a great sport. Thank you, Dan, for moderating this and refereeing us, making sure that all the blows were above the belt. I had to question a couple of them there, but I'm okay with that. As I've said time and again, solo play is an integral part of our hobby. It's been here since the beginning. It's going to be here till the end. We've got some naysayers saying that we're at the end again.
No.
But solo, solo's not a sin. Solo is not a pariah. It's a preference. It is preferred. A solo game, a solo play is never going to show up late, leave early. It's never going to argue with you about the rules. It's never going to gloat about a victory or whine about a loss. A solo game is always going to be able to play it on your schedule, and you can learn the games at your pace. So a solo game, in a lot of respects, might be one of our only friends, and we should cherish it.
Awesome. We got 25 seconds left. This was awesome. We're going to try to keep it to 45 minutes. Guys, I can't thank you enough how much fun this was. This is great. The chat, thank you so much for chiming in. Awesome. And guys, stick around. I'm going to play the same thing again. Okay? Guys, thanks, chat. Thank you. Boom.